The Inferno is by far the most difficult challenge in old school RuneScape that was designed for a single player experience. Many people think it's impossible, and quite frankly, it is. Well, until you try it. Hello everyone, Chaos here, and welcome to the absolute beginner's guide for the Inferno. In this video, I'm going to give you as much information as possible for you to get your very first and possibly only Infernal Cape. Because we are aiming for a single kill, my only disclaimer for this guide is that it will be useful if you are looking to get one Infernal Cape and nothing else. Because of that, we will be using Justiciar, and if you are hunting for the pets or even clearing all the combat achievements the Inferno has to offer, this video might not be the best option, but it will surely be a stepping stone in the right direction to give you enough confidence to start practicing the Inferno, and after your first completion you can look for more information to improve, get quicker times, and of course more kills. And just remember that clearing a single Inferno with Justiciar is just as valid as a speedrun completion as long as you do it yourself. If you find someone who shames other players for getting an Infernal Cape this way, keep in mind that they have never touched a woman other than their mother's vaginal cavity, so just ignore them and enjoy your cape. Before even recording this video, I can tell it will be fairly long, and I encourage you guys to use the chapters in the description or in the video player itself. We will go over why you should get an Infernal Cape and how to get there, a bunch of useful tips to practice prior to the Inferno, minimum and recommended levels, gear and inventory, and then a detailed look at the monsters you will face inside. Afterwards, I'll briefly talk about a small roadmap of checkpoints to track your progress, as well as crucial waves. And then we'll look at the arena and positioning for important waves. Finally, I'll talk about triple Jads leading up to Zuk himself. That being said, let's begin. So, why should you get an Infernal Cape? Not only is it the best melee cape in the game, but it will always be a flex even if you just have 1 KC. Right after maxing, I began my Inferno grind, and I did it in a way to prove to myself that if I can beat Zuk, anything is possible in the game. So it will always be a huge confidence boost as well. You can get there by entering the code BLP on a fairy ring and running east past the hot vents into more Olrek. In order to do this, you'll need to own a fire cape, so completion of the 5 caves is also required. There's a bank on the eastern part of the city, and the entrance to the Inferno is right in the middle. In order to even attempt this challenge, you'll need to sacrifice 1 fire cape, so just in case you fail and you want to do some Slayer, get an extra one for backup. Now, let's take some time to talk about a set of tips that you can apply before you start doing the Inferno that will make the grind more tolerable and will increase your chances at your first KC. It is absolutely essential for you to learn about game ticks and the prayer flicking. Once you are used to both of these, you'll be able to block damage from multiple sources, and flicking is essentially useful to save prayer points through the waves. I also recommend getting used to F keys to navigate through the menu quickly, especially your inventory, prayer, and spellbook tabs. This will save you so many clicks and most importantly precious time to invest in solving the waves. If you are using RuneLite, consider using the following plugins: GPU, NPC indicators, and the ground markers. A few extra ones you can try out are Low Detail, Visual Metronome, and a plugin to let you know what monsters are coming in the next waves. It is incredibly important for you not to die with supplies if you are starting out. You might not make it to Zuk on your first couple of attempts, and your goal is to make it as far as possible to learn as much as possible, so use them whenever you need to. Needless to say, if you are taking a casual and safe approach, it's a good idea to clear your schedule ahead of time. A good run can take anywhere between 2 and 3 hours or even longer, so you don't want to log out through the waves to avoid getting distracted. Memorizing max hits will be helpful during the later waves to know if you will be able to survive unprotected damage in case you mess up. We'll take a look at max hits when we cover the different monsters you'll be facing. Contrary to what many beginners guides might say, I suggest not bringing a Saradomin Godsword. It's good for backup, but with Blood Barrage and enough super restores, you're honestly good to go, as the SGS will only slow you down in the long run. If you want to learn from your mistakes, I recommend recording all of your runs for you to analyze your gameplay in case you die. I started doing this at some point and it helped me understand the spawns slightly better in order to improve. Just like any other long grind, patience is key. As long as you're making progress in the Inferno, imagine it's just another 99 that will take a considerable amount of time, so don't be discouraged if you don't get it in a few attempts. Last and definitely not least, in the wise words of Exact, you can do this. The Inferno is one of those things that look unbeatable until you try it yourself. You don't need godlike mechanics to get a single cape with Justiciar, so never lose hope. You will get it eventually. Now let's talk about levels, gear and inventory, and a few possible variations if you need to bring other items. Because of the gear we'll be taking, the minimum levels I recommend for the Inferno are 75 defense, 75 ranged, 74 prayer, 75 magic, anything above 75 HP, and a decently high agility level is also needed. At the time of making this video, Jagex is still proposing a rebalance to weapon requirements, so if those go through, we will change some of the previous requirements to 85 ranged and 80 magic. Realistically speaking, if you are not great at PVMing, you will need every level you can possibly get, so quite frankly, just get 99 in all of them before even attempting the Inferno. Or hey, you can even get every 99 and take the max cape with you. Okay, but for real, I would say base 90s or even 95s are going to do just fine. It is important to note that you also need completion of Desert Treasure to use ice spells, and unlocking the Rigor Prayer will help you immensely. Honestly, it's not super expensive at the moment, so save up for a Dexterous Prayer Scroll. When you are gearing up, you should take the following items on you: Justiciar Phase Guard, Avos Assembler, Necklace of Anguish, Dragon Arrows, a Kodai Wand, Armadyl Chestplates, Arcane Spirit Shield, Armadyl Chain Skirt, Barrow's Gloves, Pegation Boots, and finally an Imbued Ring of Suffering. Some variations to the setup are a Ranging Cape for better bonuses as long as you add a Vorkat's Head to it, a Master Wand or Ancient Staff instead of a Kodai Wand, a Crystal Shield instead of an Arcane Spirit Shield, Guardian Boots instead of Pegations, and possibly an Eldritch Staff for that special attack. As for the inventory, the mandatory items are as follows: Justiciar Chest Guard and Legs, a Blowpipe with the Dragon Darts, an Occult Necklace, and a Twisted Bow. Now, yeah, I know what you're gonna say, Chaos, why are you recommending a 1 billion GP item? But more about that in a little bit. Anyway, you are then going to take a rune pouch with blood, death, and soul runes, a bastion potion, a stamina potion, a Falador shield 4, and follow that up with 8 Ceradomin brews and fill the rest of your inventory with super restore potions, and we are all set. To address the elephant in the room, I recommend the Twisted Bow to have the best chance at clearing the Inferno, but if you don't have a humble 1 billion GP laying around, here are a few variations. Take a bow of Ferdinian, or however you pronounce it, instead of the Twisted Bow, and if you make this change, take Crystal Armor instead of Armadyl. If you still don't have enough GP for that, an Armadyl crossbow should do just fine, but you'll need both a Diamond and Ruby Dragon Bolts. If you don't have a Kodai Wand, you'll also need Water Runes in your inventory to cast ice spells. If you haven't completed the Elite Falador Diary, forget about the shield and throw in another Super Restore in its place. Finally, if you have the money for it, an Eldritch Staff will be more useful than a Ceradomin Godsword, but it's a bit extra and you should look into buying one if you are not great at prayer flicking. Once everything is set, buy an Ancient Mace and equip your best melee gear. Go to a house with a training dummy and use the special attack on it to go above your maximum prayer level. Head to More Olrek, drink a dose of Ceradomin Brew, then a Super Restore, and a Bastion Potion, activate your Imbued Heart, eat an Anglerfish, and you are finally ready to face the Inferno. So what about the monsters you'll be facing on your way to Zuk? In this part of the video, we'll cover important information for every mob through the waves. First, we have the Nibblers. They will spawn in groups of 3 at the beginning of each wave, except for waves 3, 8, 17, and 34, where 6 will appear instead. They will always aim for a random pillar at the beginning of the wave, and if there are none left, which kinda means you're dead, they will chase after you. They attack every 4 ticks, and if you barrage all of them and see an HP XP drop of 40, you have killed them all in 1 hit. They have 10 HP and a max hit of 4. Next we have the Bats. Every time they attack you, they will drain your run energy by 3, and if you are not praying ranged, they have a chance of lowering combat stats by 1, and their attack range is fairly low. They attack every 3 ticks, have 25 HP, and a max hit of 19. The blobs are what makes the Inferno difficult, as their mechanics are like no other monster inside. They attack every 6 ticks, but this time, once they lock onto you, they will check what you are praying, and 3 ticks later they will attack opposite to what you are protecting against. After their first attack, they will take 3 ticks to decide what attack style to use, and 3 more to actually attack. They have 40 HP and a max hit of 29. Once you defeat the blob, it will spawn 3 smaller blobs, all of which attack with a different combat style. Red for melee, green for ranged, and a blue for magic. I'll show you how to easily deal with these in a little bit, but in short, don't let them attack you all at once. They attack every 4 ticks, have 15 HP, and a max hit of 18. The melee is slightly easier but can exert a lot of pressure in later waves. It will path towards you, and if it gets stuck behind something and hasn't attacked for 20 seconds, it will dig to get near you. In my experience, they are fairly inaccurate, but I wouldn't worry too much if you have to tank a few hits. But as always, RNG is involved. They attack every 4 ticks, have 75 HP, and a max hit of 49. Next comes the Ranger. The best way to deal with them if you are one-on-one is to pray ranged as soon as they stand up straight after attacking for a visual cue. They have 0 magic defense, which makes them the perfect target for a blood barrage. They also attack every 4 ticks, have 125 HP, and a max hit of 46, which oddly enough is lower than the melee. The mage comes in after 2 ranges spawn together, and they will be able to revive other monsters that have died in the same wave, and they will come back with half HP. This is good if you want to restore some HP with blood barrage, but typically it will be more inconvenient, so whenever you can, kill the mage first. They attack every 4 ticks, have 220 HP, and a max hit of 70. Jad comes next, and surprisingly it's the one you need the least information about, because mechanics-wise it's the same as the one in the fight caves. The only difference is that this one is much stronger with 350 HP and a max hit of 113, so a single missed prayer could wipe out 2 hours of progress. When half health, a single Jad will spawn 5 healers, and during triple Jads, they will only spawn 3 of them. Last but definitely not least, we have Zuk himself. I won't worry too much about him right now, as we will go over the final wave step by step. He has 1200 HP and statistically a max hit of 251, so if you take 1 hit, there's a very good chance you're dead. At some point he will also spawn healers, which we will also talk about in a little bit. Now, before we put it all together, I would like to take a few minutes to explain the mindset behind grinding the Inferno. If you look at this challenge like something that you can do by going from point A to point B, you might feel demotivated every time you fail. So let's divide all 69 waves into a set of checkpoints for you to notice improvement after every attempt. Number 1, use all your supplies in order to make it as far as possible to experience all of the monsters in the Inferno at least once, and then we can start mastering some mechanics. Number 2, get used to the bat safe spot and avoid using prayer whenever you are killing it. Number 3, learn how the blobs attack and what to do in order to nullify all damage by praying correctly. Number 4, learn where to safe spot the melee and how to perform a corner safe spot whenever they dig, as well as prayer flicking it. Number 5, learn the timing to flick the ranger and the mage either with visual or audio cues. This one is super easy to get, and you'll see why when you get to it. Once you know how to deal with all monsters individually, number 6 is to learn what to do when the mage and the ranger are stacked vertically, but more about that in a little bit. This is all I recommend for the waves, which takes us to number 7, and that is simply learning how to properly deal with the triple Jads, and we will break down the fight in the following section. We move on to the Zuk fight, and number 8 is being able to deal with the first set after a shield rotation, either by switching prayers or just tanking the ranger as you are praying magic. As it is to be expected, number 9 is being able to kill Jad during the Zuk fight. This is the second most difficult part of the final wave, as you also have to deal with the healers and move around the map. Last and definitely not least, for number 10 we have being able to kill all healers, as well as following the shield at all times, since Zuk is going to attack slightly faster after they spawn. Once you are able to kill the healers, if you die in the Inferno, it shouldn't really be too troublesome getting back to Zuk and sealing the deal. Once you start mastering these checkpoints, you should also look into developing the following skills anywhere through the roadmap I just gave you in order to increase your chances to win. Learn how to properly position yourself once you freeze the nibblers in order to be safe and analyze the wave, quickly getting back to a safe tile. You must be able to set up your gear, prayers, and spellbook before the next wave starts in order to have the best chance at taking as little damage as possible. And finally, I recommend being able to decide when you need to run to the south pillar in case you get a bad spawn, and what to do on your way there. This will be especially useful for when the ranger starts spawning along with the mage. Of course, these are just my very personal suggestions for you to realize that progress is actually being made, and so you don't get discouraged if you fail your attempts. For reference, it took me 27 attempts to get my first Infernal cape, and I started doing runs with close to zero high-level PDMing experience. After my first Infernal cape, I went back to the Inferno to record the clips for this guide, and I got to Zuk in both of my attempts. So after learning the basics, it's really easy to get back in here. So that's it about the monsters and the roadmap, so it's time to put it all together. Let's take a look at the board and start learning how to solve the waves, or how to brute force them with Justiciar. Before you go in there for your first real attempt, enter the arena and mark the following tiles. The yellow one in the middle is where the nibblers will spawn anywhere in that 3x3 area around the tile. There's a chance that they will appear away from each other, which will make the initial freeze a little difficult, so you might have to solve the wave before attacking them all. This other yellow tile is where you should stand at the beginning of each wave for you to attempt to freeze the nibblers with your occult necklace on. Manually casting Ice Barrage and then running behind the pillar is the way to go. Depending on where the monsters spawn, you can stand on the northeastern edge of the pillar to get the southeast monster stuck, or right in the middle if most of the monsters appeared south. I personally mark these red tiles to remind me where the monsters will spawn. Later down the road it doesn't make a huge difference, but starting out it will let you know where the monsters can come from. I also mark this tile with a red outline to let me know where I should stand before triple Jads, as being in the middle will be great for you to see what each Jad will use for their next attack, and after killing one you can just move around. Finally, the tiles marked with light blue are where you should stand for Zuk not to attack you whenever you are behind the shield. After healers, these will not work, so keep that in mind, but again, more on Zuk later. As for positioning, here are a few useful tips on how to deal with the monsters at the beginning of the waves. Keep in mind that they are not going to fix every single problem you encounter, but are generally good for every run. For the nibblers, if they attack the north pillar and you already have monsters on you, try to get some of them stuck and you can safely barrage the nibblers from this exact tile. Doing so will not move you away from safety. Since the bats have a low attack range, you can blowpipe them from one tile behind the edge of the pillar you are hiding behind. Obviously this only works for the bats, but it will help you save some prayer points. Dealing with a blob one-on-one is fairly simple. For a safe approach, hide behind the pillar, pray either magic or ranged, shoot them twice with your blowpipe, run back, and pray the opposite style to mitigate all damage. Once you kill it in this tile, the little blobs will spawn in a way that the mage one will chase around the pillar and you can kill it no problem. After that, run to the other side while praying ranged and defeat the remaining ones with either a blood barrage or your blowpipe and prepare for the next wave. In later waves with multiple monsters though, this won't be as easy to perform, so I recommend getting used to the 2-tick flicking method in order to protect against multiple sources of damage, including the blob, as this technique will also nullify all damage from them under the right circumstances. When the melee starts appearing, it will be easy to get them stuck behind the south and the eastern walls of the pillar. If you are safe spawning them from the south wall, they will dig and appear near the western wall, and you can just move adjacent to their box in order to do what's known as a corner safe spot. Keep in mind that during later waves you have to kill other monsters quickly for you to avoid the melee. If running is not an option, you can just stand there and pray or flick whatever is attacking you along with the melee. Like I said before, the rangers are also super easy to deal with if you find yourself one-on-one, and you want to activate your ranged protection when they stand up straight right after attacking. You'll get to a point where the blob and the ranger might align vertically, so use the safe technique covered previously, this time praying ranged first, and then magic whenever you run back to the pillar for safety. When the little blobs spawn, it is possible to move behind the pillar to rearrange the monsters for you to only deal with one of them, and then safely praying against them. You can do this with multiple monsters, so before you run out and attack them, move around to see if they can be lured away from you. For the mage, it's almost the same story. Lure them wherever you can, and once safe, just pray or flick correctly when attacking. When it revives other monsters, there's a chance they will get stuck on top of each other, and you can apply the same technique of moving around and rearranging them to see if they budge. When the mage and the ranger appear together, you need to have two things in mind. It is now time to start each wave with Justiciar and possibly taking off your Pegation boots for more accuracy when freezing the nibblers. After barraging them, go back to the pillars and start solving the wave. If you see both Mage and Ranger and possibly a blob still attacking you along with a melee running your way, it is time to decide if you should run to the south pillar for safety, with Piety turned on for higher defense. Remember that this won't always put you in a safe position, so you may need to readjust more than once. The other thing is that the Mage and the Ranger can be stacked up vertically, and the way to solve this is very simple. Stand in the middle tile of the pillar, pray against the monster that's farther away from you, attack it, and as soon as you see the attack animation, pray against the monster closest to you. You can take care of this in two ways. For the safe approach, run behind the pillar after you attack just once. Then repeat the process until the monster farther away from you is dead, and then simply take on the monster closest to the pillar. If you want to get it over quicker though, you can stand there until you kill the back monster and prayer flick accordingly. Always remember that they are attacking one tick apart. I recommend at least trying this to see that it really isn't that bad. As for crucial waves before Jad, any wave with double blobs will be slightly difficult in terms of solving to take as little damage as possible. These are waves 7, 15, 24, 31, 41, 48, 56, and arguably the most difficult wave in the Inferno excluding triple Jads and Zuk, wave 63. Anything after that gets much easier, but of course practice makes perfect. It is now time to briefly talk about triple Jads. Honestly, the single Jad isn't even worth talking about because, like I said before, it's just a stronger Jad from the fight caves. So here's a harsh reality. When you make it to triple Jads for the very first time, chances are you will die after a few minutes or even just a few seconds. Because of this, if you have low supplies and for your very first wave 68, literally just stand in the middle and practice your prayers. That's right, do absolutely nothing other than praying correctly. To a lot of you, that's going to sound like terrible advice, but trust me, unless you are great at PVMing, which if that's the case you probably don't even need this guide, you are probably not going to kill Zuk on your first attempt past wave 68. So I recommend using your leftover supplies to practice prayers. I take a dose of Bastion Potion here for both a higher range and also better defense against the healers, so you can try that out. Once you got the timing down, it would be a good idea to start attacking. Click one Jad and get your mouse back to your prayers and switch accordingly. Once healers spawn, tag one after each Jad hit. When you have all three of them on you, you can move around slightly for only one of them to hit you. Once you are comfortable, it's only a matter of time until the first Jad goes down, which will make things immensely easier. Repeat the cycle for the second Jad, attacking the new set of healers whenever the dead Jad would attack, so you have more time to react. Keep attacking when all of the healers are on you, and obviously get that second Jad. After that, it's just smooth sailing from there. You can get all of the healers stuck behind the third and final Jad and heal with a blood barrage. Click to log out to pause the wave and mentally prepare for the final boss in the Inferno. So, you made it to wave 69. It is now time to break down the Zuk fight. Take a sip of your Bastion Potion, take a deep breath, and let's move on. Once Zuk breaks out of his prison, the shield will start moving either left or right. He will first attack when the shield reaches either corner of the arena. At this point, follow the light blue tiles for you to be safe behind the shield. You should only attack from these spots because if you do it between them, you will be dragged away, which can cause your death. After the first rotation, that is, after it got back to the first corner it reached at the beginning of the wave, a set of Mage and Ranger will spawn, and a timer of 3 minutes and 30 seconds will start. New sets will keep appearing when the timer is refreshed. Tag the closest monster while praying against it, and make it to the other corner to attack the other one, as they will start attacking the shield. Since we have Justiciar, I recommend wearing it while praying magic and focusing on killing the Ranger first. When that's done, Attack Zuk until he is below 600 HP and the set timer will pause. Kill the mage that's left and continue damaging Zuk. If you think the first set took a long time, it would be a good idea to wait until another set appears and then get Zuk behind 600 HP for you to have some more time for the following part of the fight, which gets even spicier. At 480 HP, the set timer will resume with 1 minute and 40 seconds added to it, and a Jad will spawn. At this point, change your camera angle to focus on the Jad and attack it from the light blue tiles. Once you have Jad's attention, you will have to pray accordingly. I always prioritize movement and then switching to the correct prayers. At half health, Jad healers will spawn. Just tag all of them and ignore them for the rest of the fight. At 240 HP, Zuk healers will spawn, and this is by far the most nerve-wracking part of the Inferno. Depending on how long it took you to kill Jad, it would be a good idea to wait for another set for the final stretch. Before getting to Zuk below 240 HP, stand at the corner of the arena for you to have enough time to tag all of the healers on the way back to the other corner. As soon as they spawn, the light blue tiles will stop working, and you will need to stay with the shield at all times. It is extremely important to note that after clicking on them, there is something weird with the NPC that makes it so they can't be attacked right after tagging them. It's really hard to explain, but you'll eventually experience it. Anyways, once you grab their attention, they will start shooting fireballs at the arena, quickly damaging you if you stand where they shoot. If you want to stand behind the shield, it will be inevitable to take some hits, so heal all the way up before this part of the fight. Once all of them are tagged, stay with the shield and keep attacking each one as you make your way back and forth, avoiding as many fireballs as possible. You will eventually get good enough to defeat all of the healers, but it's really not the time to get complacent. Because if you take long enough, another set will spawn. If this happens during the healer phase, there's a pretty good chance you're dead. If the set spawns once you take care of the healers, you are almost there. Apply the same technique we did at the beginning, killing the ranger and then just praying magic, and as long as you stay with the shield while attacking Zuk, his health will eventually reach 0 and you will be the proud owner of an Infernal Cape. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are even thinking of starting the Inferno grind, just get in there and get it over with right now. I really hope this video gives you enough motivation for you to at least give it a try. And who knows, you might even own an Infernal Cape because of it. A massive thank you to all my channel members you guys are seeing on screen, and if you would like to further support this channel, you can subscribe monetarily for a bunch of cool perks and rewards, from a shiny exclusive role for our Discord server, all the way up to me being your editing and a YouTube coach. I'm sure you'll find something interesting, so go ahead and click that join button. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video, which will be the last one before the highly anticipated Leagues 3 event. Have an amazing week, and I'll see you then. Peace!